Does so. Does not. Does so. Does not. Does so. Does not.
God, shut up! Everyone just shut the fuck up!
My favorite character on Friends of His Magic is Fluttershy, mostly because she's the most adorable being in the series, but also because she feels like she went through most growth in the series. Her growth was relatively slow, of course, only really showing in season 5 and onwards, but I like to think that she's at least trying to show a little bit of growth before that. And to be honest, any portrayal she's going to get moving forward is better than this. What we're looking at here is the first Fluttershy-centered episode, in which a giant dragon is taking a nap in a cave close by Ponyville, which in and of itself wouldn't be much of a problem if it weren't for the fact that his snoring produces lots of smoke that is slowly covering up Equestria. And it's up to the main 6 to make sure the dragon leaves his spot and goes somewhere else to sleep. Because, well, Equestria simply won't be able to survive with all this smoke. And, this being a Fluttershy-centered episode, she of course needs to talk to the dragon. I think this is a good opportunity to talk about Fluttershy's entire character this season. I know I'll probably be spoiling a lot of what is going to happen in future episodes by doing this, but I feel like this is important to bring up right now. From the very start, it was quite clear that she is not the most confident or brave pony around. In the very first episode, she was shown to have a lot of trouble with introducing herself to Twilight, and there were plenty of other moments where she was very quiet and apologetic about nearly everything. This is a trend we'll see frequently throughout the entirety of season 1 and 2, and it's stuff like this that make it really tough to go back to the early seasons of Friendship is Magic, because it makes you realize just how much better these characters have become over the course of the show, especially if you've seen everything past season 3 exclusively for the last 4 years or so.
We can make it up, Applejack! Can you please listen to me?
And with no character is that ever so apparent than with Fluttershy.
That pony's afraid of her own shadow. She's just gonna slow us down.
As much as I hate to say it, I have to agree with Rainbow Dash on that one. Fluttershy is physically as well as mentally incapable of going through with this plan. Let's go over what they have to accomplish here, shall we? The dragon's sleeping in a cave, on top of this giant mountain, which the main 6 will have to climb. But Fluttershy is afraid of climbing steep hills, and Fluttershy suddenly can't fly for reasons that we'll get to in a moment. Because of all this and many other examples of Fluttershy's fears, the main 6 are moving forward very slowly. And as a result, the episode itself moves forward very slowly. The plot doesn't really go anywhere for a good chunk of the episode because Fluttershy slows every single scene down that she's in. And again, as much as I love Fluttershy, having that happen was not a good thing in the slightest for me. It was cute at the start, but slowly becomes quite a nuisance as the episode progresses. And when we finally get to the dragon, this is where we learn that Fluttershy is so frightened because she's afraid of dragons. Yes, the Pegasus, who goes up against a gigantic Manticore in Friendship is Magic Part 2 and is friends with an actual dragon, is afraid of dragons. You could argue that the dragon she's friends with is more or less just a baby dragon still, but that doesn't really make sense to me, considering that she had no problem supporting a Manticore when it had a splinter. This fear of dragons kind of comes out of nowhere, and like I said, it doesn't really make much sense to me at all. Now, giving her credit where it's due though, she does overcome her fear when her friends were being attacked by the dragon, which was showing a nice bit of growth for her, but it doesn't really matter too much, because in the next Fluttershy episode, she'll be just as fragile as she was at the beginning of this one. It really goes to show how far the show's gone over the years. After having seen how far Fluttershy's gone, it was very hard for me to go back here. This is not an episode that I would want to rewatch after this marathon, and I'm kind of glad it's over with. So, what is a plot that has been done so many times by different girls' cartoons that it's honestly become a little bit of a cliché? Well, have I got an example for you today! Yeah, that one shitpost that I posted the other day? That one was a slight preview of what you're about to see here.
Does so, does not. Does so, does not. Does so, does not.
God, shut up! Everyone just shut the fuck up!
Well then, this'll be something. Because there's a rough storm raging over Ponyville, Rarity and Applejack are staying at Twilight's place for the night. And because Twilight has never had one before, she had the idea of holding an actual slumber party under these circumstances. Yes, Look Before You Sleep is a slumber party episode, complete with all the stuff you'd expect. S'mores, pillow fights, face masks, as well as two people arguing like children. Oh no wait, that seems to be an exclusive thing for this particular episode.
I dare you not to enter the next rodeo that comes to town.
I dare you to not comb your mane 100 times before bed.
And I dare you to comb yours just once.
Yeah, that is pretty much how the entire episode goes. Rarity and Applejack constantly argue with each other throughout the entire thing, and it is beyond obnoxious. Not helping is that Twilight literally is seeing all this happen in front of her very eyes, and there's literally nothing about it. It wouldn't be so bad if it was just a small portion of the episode, but this is pretty much the whole thing. And no, I am not a fan in the slightest of this. Now, I will say, there is one nice moment in the end of this, where a tree crashes inside of the house and AJ and Rarity work together to get it out of there. And the episode ends with the three of them just playing around and having some casual fun with each other. It was a pretty nice way to end it, I'll be honest with you. I just wish that the rest of this episode wouldn't be so incredibly obnoxious. After watching this next episode, I would absolutely never want to get in a scenario like this. One thing that Season 1 managed to do quite well is the comedy aspect of it. Even though there's a fair few episodes that don't quite do it for me, most of the episodes I do enjoy mostly because of the comedy in it. And Bridle Gossip is a golden example of this. This is the first episode where a zebra named Zecora comes into the series. She lives in the Everfree Forest, where she brews potions for herself and other ponies, and she frequently pays a little visit to Ponyville, where she'll gather a couple of ingredients for the potions that she's brewing. Sadly, the townspeople of Ponyville seem to be a little bit scared of her, making assumptions of her being a dangerous creature, much like many of the other creatures that can be found in the Everfree. So the main six are essentially judging someone purely on their home and just assume that she's dangerous because she's digging a hole to presumably plant something. It's about as nonsensical as it all sounds. Even Twilight can see through this bullcrap. And so does Applejack's younger sister, Applebloom, who follows Zecora into the Everfree Forest, only to then be stopped by the main six, who step in some pretty nice looking blue plants and yell at Zecora. Oh, we will get to that shortly. Every pony heads back home to catch some sleep. Then the next day...
Slap this ball with it. Curse! I'm afraid I have to agree.
all of this happened! Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to something that this show likes to call Poison Joke. A plant that physically affects any pony who comes in direct contact with it in the most ridiculous of ways. Which makes for some pretty hilarious moments in this episode. Rainbow Dash constantly crashing into things, Rarity's stupidly long hair, Flutter Guy...
I don't want to talk about it.
This is hilarious!
And Pinkie Pie's ginormous tongue. It all gave me a lot of laughs, I have to say. Now, as for Zecora herself, I find her absolutely delightful. Everything about her screams mysterious. Her living in the Everfree Forest, being a zebra, talking in rhyme.
You destroy my home, destroy my work, then rudely accuse me of being a jerk? It is unwise to venture down this road. Your actions will make my anger explode!
And the interior of her home. And I can definitely say that she's probably the first thing I think of when I think of the Everfree. Mostly because she honestly is the most memorable thing in there. We also learned that she's more or less your average pony with a passion for brewing and the Everfree Forest. And we also learned that Applebloom helps Zecora with brewing some of her potions. Mostly with picking up some ingredients that she needs for the potions or with the actual brewing process. In the end, the main six do apologize for wrecking Zecora's home, and they all get cured from Poison Joke. It's a really nice way to end this really good episode, and after a fair few episodes that weren't so great, I'd say this is a very good way to pick up the good pace once again. It's another example of an episode that you should just go into with an open mind. Don't worry too much about the overall story, and just enjoy whatever happens on screen. A common trend in Friendship is Magic is that there's a fair few episodes in there that are both very good and at the same time pretty problematic. This next episode is a very good example of that. The parasprites are an iconic species in Friendship is Magic, which makes me both happy as well as sad because Swarm of the Century is one of the very few episodes they actually get featured in. There's another one all the way in Season 3 where they simply get a quick cameo and then just disappear to the ether. And Swarm of the Century is a very mixed bag. One that I did get some enjoyment out of, but there's some massive problems with this episode's story. Fluttershy the other day finds a small creature that she has not yet seen before in Ponyville. She decides to take it home with her, because it's one of the most adorable little things she's ever seen, and shows it to her friends. They soon find out that these aren't your ordinary fairy-esque creatures. Parasprites multiply at a rapid rate, and they have a tendency to literally eat any and all food around, which is made immediately clear in the very beginning of this episode and is quickly made clear for the main six. Hilarity ensues because all this happening, as the main six are constantly trying to keep these things under control, especially because they are expecting Princess Celestia to come over to Ponyville for a visit. Pinkie Pie is collecting numerous musical instruments, which we'll get to in a minute, and the main six bring all the parasprites together to take them all inside of Ponyville as efficiently as possible, so they won't cause any further damage. Now, I want to talk about Pinkie and Fluttershy for a moment, because they play a very big role in all that's going on in this episode. Throughout all that happens, as said before, Pinkie collects numerous music instruments. However, she never really tells us what she's gonna be doing with them. And she comes off as just being just as wacky as we know Pinkie Pie. From what I understand, there's a fair few people who get upset with this, because they think Pinkie should just tell her friends what her plan is, and in turn, she should also just tell the audience what her plan is. I myself think that not saying anything about what her plan is, which I'd like to get to in the end of this segment, makes this more intriguing for the audience. It's way more interesting to sit, watch, and think about what she could be hoping to do with these instruments. Judging how things go, with how shocked she was by the presence of parasprites, and how she immediately goes looking for instruments, I'd say it's very possible for people to try and figure this out for themselves. It makes the whole thing more interesting, as well as engaging, especially for younger audiences who this series is for. Then we get to Fluttershy, who is the bigger problem with this whole thing. Why? Because she is the whole reason why any of this is happening in the first place. The first time we can let it slide, because this is literally the first time she ever saw one of these creatures. However, later in the episode, after the main six dragged all the parasprites outside of Ponyville, it is revealed that Fluttershy kept one of them. That was probably the worst idea she could have possibly have. And I can't even imagine what could possibly be her motivation to do this. You know, other than that, the episode needed to be a little longer, so let's just destroy an entire character for this one scene.
What the fuck were they thinking?
That was the big thing that did not sit well with me in the slightest, because it basically made her look like the biggest cause of all that was going to happen after this. The parasprites caused lots of destruction in Ponyville, and things got more out of control as time went by. Twilight attempts to stop the madness with her magic, which resulted in even more mayhem, of course, and it took Pinkie to save the day for every pony. How? One-man band, of course. And it's freaking brilliant. Look at this. This is one amazing little parade that's going on. I think that's a wonderful surprise to this thing. How come so many people get upset over this? Now, I honestly find it rather difficult to say how exactly I feel about this. Swarm of the Century is a good episode. I am open to acknowledge that. However, there are some very big problems going on with the plot in it, particularly with Fluttershy. And I reckon it'd be very difficult for people to look past that. And yes, I would agree with that. However, the rest of this episode was entertaining enough for me, so I would probably come back to this and enjoy the good parts of it. Because again, it was a pretty fun episode with some very neat visuals and an hilarious ending. Not something I'd blindly recommend to anyone, but if you're curious, do give it a shot and see if you like it.